Aidan came from Iona to lead a mission to the kingdom of Northumbria after the failure of a previous mission. King Oswald had inherited the throne, but having been sent to Iona as a child during the Kingdom Wars, he wanted his new people, the Angles of Northumbria, to gain a proper knowledge of Christianity. They had fallen away from the faith when the Christian King Edwin had been killed in 633. The monks who led the first mission went back to Iona, reporting that the Angles were intraceable, obstinate, and uncivilized. Aidan suggested that perhaps these monks had been too harsh on the Angles, and that they needed the milk of simpler teaching, as the apostle recommends, until little by little as they grow strong on the food of God's word, they were capable of receiving more elaborate instructions. At this suggestion, the gathering of monks agreed that Aidan should be consecrated as bishop and sent to Northumbria to see if his approach would work. Aidan therefore brought a small group of monks from Iona and established his monastic center in Lindisfarne, the first Christian center on that island. Aidan walked the kingdom, sharing the gospel with those he met. He walked rather than riding a horse, so that he could engage with the people without seeming to be above them, either physically or in status. He spent time in the slave markets, using money that had been given for the work in the monastery to buy slaves. Once he had bought them, he would allow them to choose freedom or a place of learning in his monastery. Many chose the place of learning, and so began one of the first schools for the English, or the Angles, in history. Aidan exhibited great spiritual power, mixed with a gentle love and humility. He performed wonderful miracles, including driving a great fire away from the gates of Bamburgh Castle through prayer when the pagan King Penda attacked. He showed great acts of humility and grace. For example, on one occasion, when the king had commanded him to ride, he gave away the horse, with its royal trappings, to a beggar on the side of the road. He was also a man truly loved by others, even those who opposed his theology. Bede tells us that numerous monks and bishops from the Church of Rome took counsel with Aidan, and that the difference between the two streams of church, the Celtic and the Roman, regarding the date of Easter, was tolerated while Aidan was alive, because they had clearly understood that although he could not keep Easter otherwise than according to the manner of those who sent him, he nevertheless labored diligently to practice the works of faith, piety, and love, which is the mark of all the saints. This tolerance, based on the respect that the Roman Church had for Aidan personally, does not seem to have been granted to the Celtic church leaders after Aidan's death. Perhaps this contributed to the calling of the Synod of Whitby in 664. Bede describes Aidan thus: a man of outstanding gentleness, devotion, and moderation, who had a zeal for God. Such were his love of peace and charity, temperance and humility. His soul which triumphed over anger and greed, and at the same time despised pride and vainglory. He made it his business to omit none of the commands of the evangelists, the apostles, and the prophets. And the best recommendation of his teaching to all was that he taught no other way of life than that which he himself practiced. He wasn't so much someone who practiced what he preached, as someone who only preached what he practiced. Well, Aidan was a pioneer with a great heart and an amazing strength of character. He shared the gospel with a foreign people, with King Oswald's help in translating from Aidan's Irish Gaelic to the language of the Angles. He was a man of outstanding gentleness, devotion, and moderation, who had a zeal for God. spend a few moments simply resting. Breathe gently and slowly. Become aware of the constant presence of God, which envelops you and permeates you. Well, Aidan was a man who had humble beginnings, and despite his rise, he remained humble throughout. He influenced mighty rulers and lowly slaves. He saw all people as equal in the eyes of God, and therefore treated them all as equal, regardless of their earthly status. How do you treat different people? Do you distinguish one person or people group from another as better or more deserving? How might you become better at treating everyone as equal and humbly seeing them as one with God? Spend time with God now, dwelling upon these questions. May you understand the great spiritual power which dwells within you. May you treat everyone you meet equally without partiality. May you only instruct others in those things that you already embody.